Here we go. Let's Speak Geek.
You're listening to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
On the Geek Speak Radio Show. And here we go, another episode of the Geek Speak Radio Show. After our adventures at the Winchester Mystery House, Romo affected him so much that he's not going to be here today. He decided to, quote-unquote, call in sick. Yeah, right. You guys know why he's not here. He doesn't do very well with Halloween stuff. We're going to do some Halloween stuff. This first one is sort of Halloween related. You can say that. I'm not going to say too much because we're going to talk to three of the creators, the people behind Feeding Ground from Archaea Entertainment. Feeding Ground, yet another really cool thing that they have. We talk about them here all the time, all the stuff, all the things that they have, the comic books, the graphic novels, everything. Today, Swifty Lang, one of the creators and writers of Feeding Ground, is on the phone with us. Swifty, welcome to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
Thank you so much for having me. By the way, that's a pretty dynamic opening you have, I just got to say.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we like it here too. Let's talk about Feeding Ground. First, without giving too much away for those who haven't read it yet, tell us a little bit about Feeding Ground.
Sure. Feeding Ground tells the story of the Biscatas, a Mexican family trying to cross the border into Arizona because they basically have a huge family problem, which I don't want to reveal. And in addition to dealing with the real-world horrors that the desert presents, there's also werewolves prowling on the plains.
See, and that's what makes it Halloween-y. It just came out, collected edition hardcover. It was a 6-issue comic book series from Archaea, but the collected edition hardcover just came out. It's in stores, on Amazon, on the Archaea website, and there's a link on geekspeakradioshow.com in our link section to that. There's also a Feeding Ground en Espanol version, so there's both versions for you there, right, Swifty?
Yes, exactly. Archaea, since the beginning, they've been very visionary in the sense that our original floppies, they were bilingual flip books. And basically when you purchased the individual issue, it was available in both English and Spanish in the same edition, and that was a first, I believe, in comics. And from the get-go, Archaea really had a vision for kind of really being true to the region by providing that Spanish language edition.
Speaking of visions, what gave you the idea to put werewolves on the border?
Well, basically, there's a couple of things. I was talking to a friend of mine named Thomas Payton, who's a documentarian, and he and I were talking about some of his experience. He had shot a film about a man trying to cross the border, across the Devil's Highway, who had died. And he was just telling me some stories about the border. And he had we were also talking about monsters in general. And specifically, we had talked about the least represented monster at the time, which was the werewolf. And for some reason, I was standing outside a subway platform, and something clicked. And I realized that the werewolf was actually the ideal metaphor for the process of immigration, this idea of having to transform into something, this process of a metamorphosis. But most importantly, it sounded scary as hell to try to run across the desert and battle, the werewolf itself. In reality, I just have to say very clearly that any of the horrors that we are having fun with on the Feeding Ground pale in comparison to what actually goes on out there. And from the get-go, one of the things that I've personally emphasized is that I'm not a journalist. What I'm trying to do with this story is attract attention to the region, raise questions, and allow people to read further. But also, in addition to that, I want to tell a great story, and I think we really accomplished that with Feeding Ground.
I'm actually glad you said that, because this story can be enjoyed by anybody, no matter what your views on the illegal immigration or immigration in general issue is, right?
Correct, absolutely. I mean, while we each have stances, I would say they aren't really about the politics as much as it is really about we're humanists. And my attitude personally is that if you're in the United States, everyone comes from somewhere, unless you're a Native American. And for me personally, the issue of immigration, you can go back consistently throughout America's history, and you can look at the immigrant as the outgroup and how immigrants have always been treated coming into this country. I was raised in South Florida, and for me growing up, the outgroup and the immigrant that was villainized by the media, of course, were Cuban immigrants coming into America for a time period. Obviously now there's a very strong Cuban community in Miami that is, very much a part of the community. But, and personally, as a Jewish American, I can tell you that if there were similar walls and borders, I wouldn't be here. My grandparents came from Russia and they came from Poland, and, to be perfectly honest, there'd be no comics industry. The creators of Superman basically were, their parents were immigrants as well. So it's just really what we have is a recurrence in our history in this country of terrible treatment towards immigrants, even though the reality is when you look in the mirror, you come from somewhere. And more than anything else, I think it's very important for us to remember that.
Yeah, one thing I like that you just mentioned right now is how you, and I've never heard this before, you liken the immigrant experience to becoming a werewolf. Now, you just mentioned Superman. We've heard, I think I've heard you in an interview say it sometimes, but we've heard many people compare the Superman comic book, his story, to the immigrant.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, essentially what they've talked about, and, I can't take full credit for this, although, of course we'd like to, but I can't. The reality is that if you look at Superman's story, basically, he came to this country after his planet was destroyed. He arrived in a basket, much like, the Moses story. He has a trace of his home planet with him, which is his identity, and then in order to blend into this culture, he has to assimilate. Clark Kent is essentially an attempt to assimilate into culture. Of course, most people, are not fooled by the glasses, but I can tell you that this idea of needing to belong to a new world and needing to blend is very much at the heart of any immigrant's experience. And this kind of this tension between wanting to belong and wanting to remain true to one's background is essentially, that is the immigrant story, regardless of where they come from. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, perfectly. We're talking again to Swifty Lang, is creator and writer of Feeding Ground, available right now from Archaea Comics, collected edition hardcover available on Amazon, on the Archaea website, comic book shops, bookstores, pretty much everywhere. You go to geekspeakradioshow.com, the link section, it's all on there. Two versions, Feeding Ground and Feeding Ground en Espanol. And Swifty, what was that a marketing move, or was that planned from the beginning to do the Spanish version?
It was something that we had entertained internally, but it was really one of those things that we couldn't figure out how to even incorporate it in a way that made sense. And from the beginning, Archaea saw this as an opportunity to really tell our story to as wide an audience as possible. And it really was a stroke of brilliance. I mean, for my opinion, Archaea really puts out some of the most beautiful books in the marketplace right now. And for them, it was really an opportunity to get the word out and reach as many people as possible. So absolutely, if you read the English edition, there is some Spanish peppered in, but it's very basic Spanish. And at times we kind of had to scale back in order for clarity. If you read the issue 1 of the floppy, for example, something as rudimentary as the word hermano, we had to change to brother, just for the sake of clarity. It's really, and this is something I can tell you, the difference between the floppies and the trade itself is in coming out with the trade, we had the opportunity to kind of revisit certain scenes and clarify and smooth out dialogue. And I can tell you that the story that we told through the trade is the definitive story. The floppies themselves have become almost artifacts that are worthwhile because you can kind of see our learning curve and our growth process.
Right, and again, you can get that on Amazon, the Archaea website, comic book shops, bookstores, and all linked up on geekspeakradioshow.com in the links section.
Absolutely, and you could read a free preview on our Facebook page if you like Feeding Ground. We have a preview there of the first issue in which you can see hermano in Spanish, which is very exciting.
Yeah, and you mentioned Archaea a minute ago. Were they behind you 100% from the get-go?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny. When we first got into this, we had put together a pretty in-depth pitch packet. We had our entire world mapped out, and I was fortunate enough to work with Michael and Chris on this. And with our different backgrounds, we had put together our entire mythology, we had put together 5 covers, we had laid out the first issue script, we had 4 sample pages as well as 3 covers. And I think that Archaea, basically, when they received our pitch packet, from the get-go, they were blown away. I mean, they knew that we had a sense of the story that we wanted to tell. But I can tell you that there was a tremendous amount of happenstance with this even ending up in Archaea's hands. Michael was at NYCC 2 years ago, and as he was making the rounds, I think he was waiting to speak to someone, and he happened to be near the Archaea table. I think he passed it along to Stephen Christie, and it basically went up the ranks, and they wanted to make a deal on the spot. Now, at the time, I can tell you Archaea was not really one of the companies that we had on our radar, and that probably has to do less with who they were than our knowledge of their position in comics at the time. But it was just one of those situations where it was not only right place, right time, but I really felt that our team had put together a really solid example of what a pitch packet should look like. And also that is something we are going to make available for people to take a look at for all aspiring creators out there. Because at the end of the day, as most creators, we're fortunate to be doing this, and we got really, really lucky. I have to say that, you know, we've learned as we went, and we're very happy with the book we've put out there, but we're certainly creators who understand that there's a very fine line between fan and creator, and anything we can do to help people cross over and take that leap themselves is something that is important to us.
Yeah, I gotta say, I agree with you about Archaea, because we cover a lot of conventions on the show, and I've seen the Archaea booth literally grow from just a tiny little booth to huge. I mean, you've seen how they are at conventions, just huge, really elaborate, really stand out, and they catch your attention from way on the other side of the convention floors. And a lot of their comics, they are some of the best out there. The graphic novels are some of the best out there, which is why we talk about them here on this show. So that was a good choice going with Archaea.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they do 2 things really well. They do a lot of things well, but 2 things they do incredibly well is I don't know anyone else out there who's putting out as wide a range of stories. I mean, you have everything from Mouse Guard to Us and everything in between. So the kind of stories that they're telling are incredibly diverse that you just don't see anywhere else. They take tremendous risks. The other thing about them is their entire approach to publishing is different than most of the companies in that they are not putting out floppies anymore. They are dedicated to putting out contained stories as hardcover graphic novels. And what they believe, and this is actually something that we were their last floppy that they put out, they're now exclusively going to the hardcover editions, is they are trying to kind of change the way that books are consumed. And what they do is they create beautiful objects. I feel so honored when I hold that book in my hands. It looks fantastic. And if you look down the line and you visit Archaea's booth, what you'll notice is it's almost like a library. They position a chair there, the books are available for browsing, and they're really trying to create this idea not of the comic as something that's disposable, but as something that is going to be on your shelf for years to come. So there's really something they are really mythologizing their books by actually making them books. So I think they put out tremendous stuff, and I could not be a bigger advocate for them than I currently am. Of course, I'm published by them. So, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what didn't think of it that way, but that is exactly what it looks like at WonderCon here in San Francisco a few months ago. That's what the booth looked like a library. You can actually sit there and page through the books. So again, we're talking to Swifty Lang, creator, writer, Feeding Ground. It's out right now in comic books on Amazon, Archaea website, everywhere, like I said, regular bookstores, and just go to geekspeakradioshow.com to the link section. It's all on there. So Swifty, after Feeding Ground, do you have any other projects that you can tell us about lined up?
Absolutely. Well, Michael and I actually are planning on working on something. I have, as I said, I'm from Miami, and I'm working on basically 3 crime stories that take place in Miami, and they're variations of the crime genre. While I worked in horror, it's not really horror that I'm only attached to, but I'm interested in characters. And I don't want to talk too much about the book yet, but I can tell you it's something that's a complete departure from Feeding Ground. And it's basically a story about identity that takes place in Miami and the Florida Keys. And all 3 of these stories take place in 1983. So it involves all kinds of fun stuff, from the cocaine wars to the Miami hurricanes to everything in between. And this first book, it has a comedic bend to it. So, I think that it's very important as a storyteller to kind of explore different things and always be challenging yourself. So while I'll definitely return to horror, I would say that this is really rooted in kind of Miami crime. Similar to, there's this writer named Charles Wildford, who's a big influence on Elmore Leonard. So it's kind of tough guy fiction with quirky characters is the best way I could describe it.
Okay, so we'll definitely be looking forward to that. So Swifty Lang, again, creator, writer, Feeding Ground en Espanol, and the regular collected edition hardcover is out from Archaea Entertainment, one of our favorites here. So Swifty, thanks a lot for coming on and talking to us about Feeding Ground.
Thank you so much for your time today, and I love the show, and I really appreciate you having me on it.
Thank you, and you're welcome back anytime to talk about any other project you have coming up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great afternoon.
Okay, Swifty, you too. Okay, so there you go, Swifty Lang, creator, writer, Feeding Ground en Espanol, and the English version, or I should say the bilingual version, collected edition hardcover from Archaea Entertainment, available at comic book shops, your regular bookstores, Amazon, on the Archaea website, and all of that. GeekSpeakRadioshow.com, the link section, it's all on there. Also, like Swifty mentioned, go to the Facebook page. You can get a first look at the first issue, a free look, I should say, at the first issue. It's right there on their Facebook page. So we're going to continue with Feeding Ground, talk to some more of the creators. Don't go anywhere.
The Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.
We seek her out, the one who stole our lives. We will have our revenge, and you will die.
This Halloween, the most haunted place in American history comes to light at Winchester Mystery House's all-new Fright Nights. Evening haunts begin September 30th. For more details or to buy tickets, visit WinchesterMysteryHouse.com or Winchester Mystery House box office.
This is the house that fear built.
So you think your house is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House, do you? Here's your chance to prove it. Go to Facebook.com/OurHouseIsScarier-Than-Yours and post your scary but true haunted house story. Do you hear weird noises in your house? Do you see shadows when no one's there? Something even more scarier than that? Post it on our wall and we'll pick the one we think is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House. If we pick your story, you'll get tickets to experience the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights events, happening weekends through October 31st. Take the world-renowned flashlight tour. What are you doing here? And enter the all-new Curse of Sarah Winchester maze. Get out! If you dare, we'll prove to you that our house is scarier than yours. Go to Facebook.com/OurHouseIsScarier-Than-Yours and post your story. Only from the Winchester Mystery House and the Geek Speak Radio Show. This is the show where you hear everything geek culture.
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed.
Now back to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
And we are back on the Geek Speak Radio Show, continuing our conversation on Feeding Ground, available from Archaea Entertainment, out in bookstores, comic books, out pretty much everywhere, as we just finished speaking to Swifty. And now we're going to talk to the person who literally makes it come to life. That would be Mr. Mike Lapinski, creator, illustrator of Feeding Ground. Mike, welcome to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
No problem. So, like I said, we just finished talking to Swifty, and he gave us pretty much the background of the story. But with you, when you were first approached about Feeding Ground, what was your first thought when you were asked to do it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, really, it was a matter of hearing Swifty tell this story that to me seemed so topical and just right on the money when it came to something that appealed to, the horror fan in me, but then also wanting to tell a story that mattered. I felt like if I was going to invest the amount of time I did in terms of working on a comic book, I would want to know that I was telling a story that, kind of needed to be told. And, this was the one.
Yeah, and you worked on Disney's Doug and then Blue's Clues and Teenage Mutant and other cartoons. So how was it different doing the comic book from doing a cartoon?
Oh, geez. I mean, honestly, I spent so many years working on preschool television that it really didn't prepare me for working on a horror comic of this nature. Working on television and working in cartoons, it's amazing in terms of working on a team. Like I am still a digital designer for animated shows, but I'm not the animator, I'm not the storyboard artist. There's a huge production line, and you kind of count on the fact that you are doing one job in the middle of all of that. So for me, working on the book was kind of taking all of those roles, and in a comic, it's layout, inks, pencils, color, and doing it all at once. It was a real education. I love comics. I've been reading them since I was a kid, and so this was a real crash course, having to do it all myself.
So when you were first approached, did Swifty and Chris Mangun, the other creator, did they give you an idea of what they wanted, or did they just set you free and say, hey, come up with whatever you want to?
I think one of the things that really helped with Feeding Ground was that Swifty and I especially had known each other for a while, and we already knew what this needed. I guess to answer your previous question too, one thing I learned working on other people's shows was that every project deserves its own art style. Like I'm not one that has such a set aesthetic that I would lock in and just do one thing. So when he talked about the needs of the story, I knew right away that I was crafting something from scratch. And so in this case, we both really like woodcut prints, and we like old EC comics, kind of looking at all the different ways that horror's been done over the years. And I think the thing that resonated for us the most was to try to create an art style that felt like it had, that it emerged from, folk art, from woodcut art. Definitely there's a comic tradition in there, but we wanted to come up with an aesthetic that wasn't, your traditional superhero comic or kind of the really professional, slick package that you see, month to month in a book from the big two.
This being your first professional comic book, I should say, how did you approach, how did you prepare yourself, I should say, to go from TV program into a comic book, kind of like the werewolves that are in Feeding Ground? How did you go into that transformation from...
Yeah, the transformation?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It was pretty shocking. Like the straight answer is that I really needed to bone up. If I had one regret, that I hadn't continued drawing in that style for a while. In college, I worked on my own comic strips. I had done a good deal of art up to that point, but working in Photoshop for 10 years or so on the various shows I worked on, I think those skills had at least laid dormant. So I kind of had to eat my Wheaties and take my vitamins and get to drawing again. Looking at the things that I loved and figuring out how I would best be able to serve this story. So yeah, it was a huge learning curve. I mean, and I even see it myself. Any artist will say it's hard to see the earlier stuff because you see all the things that you're learning. But I think it was just a matter of kind of doing it on the page. There wasn't a lot of time to practice.
Well, I got to say, I've read Feeding Ground. I got to say, I really, really like the art that you put into it. I can actually see it moving, and I likened it a lot to, I don't know if you've seen her work, it's Sarah Pichelli's work. She just started working on the new Ultimate Spider-Man. And
oh my God, that's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, both of you guys have that style where you can almost see the pictures moving. So great job on that, Mike.
Very cool. No, I mean, and especially, like I said, I was coming from a preschool place, so I needed to have a degree of realism to my work. So I think earlier on I was leaning on some photo reference more than I would have liked and more than I ever would again, and that tends to stiffen up your artwork. So the fact that you're saying that it was moving and that there's actually some movement on the page definitely means a lot, so thanks.
Yeah, I think part of it also is that a lot of the panels, it looks kind of 3D actually. I mean, there's somewhere where the dogs, and I don't want to give too much away from the story, but there's a panel with some dogs, and it looks like some of the dogs are in the foreground and the others are in the back. Then there's some where they're pointing a gun, and it looks like the gun is pointed right at you, and it's literally jumping out of the panel. So that's probably why to me it looks like it's actually moving.
No, good call. And for me, it was that balance too. I really appreciate flat art. Something that doesn't try too much for creating atmosphere. I like something where you can almost see the ink laying down on it. But in those cases you're talking about, I definitely had to try to push the plane. So there was the drama was actually kind of happening in panel.
Yeah, so again, we're talking to Mike Lapinski, illustrator for Feeding Ground. It's out right now in all comic book stores, bookstores everywhere. Again, just go to geekspeakradioshow.com. The link section, you can get your copy right there. 2 versions available, the bilingual and the en español version. Now, Mike, after Feeding Ground, are you planning on doing another comic, or is that enough for you?
No, I tell you what, it's an education. I imagine anyone you talk to, like, comics are very time-consuming as an art form, but I genuinely love them. So, given the right opportunity, I would want to work on something again. I know that Swifty and I have ideas, especially those centered around Miami, where he grew up, and we would want to bring a totally different aesthetic to that story, if we have the chance to do it. I am doing some short stories, and I will be around kind of, doing some freelance comic work here and there, but I think right now it's good. Like, having done the book, I'm experimenting with doing storyboards. I can go back and work in animation if I'd like, but I think this past year and a half, I added so much to my toolkit that I'm trying to figure out where the best place would be for me.
Yeah, let's step away from Feeding Ground for a little bit, and let me just ask you, Geek to Geek, what kind of comic book did you grow up reading?
Oh, yeah, man. Geek to Geek. Spider-Man was my guy growing up. I joke that, I met him at the opening of an appliance store in my hometown, and so, we lived right across from New York City, so I kind of thought he was real, for the longest time. So he was, I would say I was a big Marvel guy, back in the 80s with Spider-Man, Daredevil, and X-Men all hitting their stride. Dave Mazzucchelli on Born Again just opened my eyes, along with Bill Sienkiewicz on New Mutants. I think that was the point where I was went from being a comics fan to then being somebody who wanted to figure out how to do it, because those things are just fine art, in my opinion.
Yeah, Spider-Man's always been my favorite guy, and I've always been a big Marvel guy myself also. So let me ask you, a couple of weeks ago on the show, we had a big discussion on the new 52 from DC, and also, especially this one really had a big, huge reaction. The introduction of Miles Morales as the new Spider-Man. What would you think of both of those?
Oh, man, I'm glad you asked. You mentioned Sarah Pichelli before, and I've been a huge fan of what Bendis did with Ultimate Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. I guess you too, given that you're a Spider-Man fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so seeing this come about, I'm of the mind that I'm so proud of them in some way that they're creating a new myth for today. And, a lot of the basics of what makes someone Spider-Man are kind of there, but by issue 2, I'm already feeling this kid, Miles, like he's a brand new character, a new person. So I'm really excited about that. I kind of feel like it's some fresh blood, and it feels like Marvel's own version of a New 52 is going on in the Ultimate universe right now. Same thing with Hickman on Ultimates. I feel like it's fantastic. With that art team, too, of Rippick and White. So that we get some really good comics right now. But yeah, so 52, the main one for me is that Animal Man book. Have you checked that out?
No, but I keep hearing good things about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's also tied to what we're all doing with Feeding Ground, that I love horror. I don't always know if it's done right in comics or done in a way that really hits, and I think he found the right balance, of finding this mundane family, especially, has the superhero power, but he's finding a dark edge to it that really, struck a chord with me. And Travel Foreman is someone who I loved on Iron Fist, who, and also I think Ares he did too. And for me, it's anyone that can bring a new visual language to horror or to comics in general, but in this case to his horror, I feel like he's doing a great service. These guys are telling a new story. So yeah, I'm digging Animal Man especially.
Okay, there you go. And that's why this show is called Geek Speak, a radio show. So again, Mike Lapinski.
No, don't get me started.
Yeah, illustrator Feeding Ground. Feeding Ground is out right now, 2 versions, the bilingual version and the en español version, out in everywhere. Again, just go to our link section on geekspeakradioshow.com. You can get it on there. So, Mike, thanks a lot, and we wish you continued success, and you're welcome back anytime to Speak Geek.
Yeah, thanks so much. Good talking.
All right, Mike, thanks a lot.
The Geek Speak Radio Show. We'll be right back.
We seek her out, the one who stole our lives. We will have our revenge, and you will die.
This Halloween, the most haunted place in American history comes to light at Winchester Mystery House's all-new Fright Nights. Evening haunts begin September 30th. For more details or to buy tickets, visit WinchesterMysteryHouse.com or Winchester Mystery House box office.
This is the house that fear built.
So you think your house is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House, do you? Here's your chance to prove it. Go to facebook.com/ourhouseisscarierthanyours and post your scary but true haunted house story. Do you hear weird noises in your house? Do you see shadows when no one's there? Something even more scarier than that? Post it on our wall and we'll pick the one we think is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House. If we pick your story, you'll get tickets to experience the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights events, happening weekends through October 31st. Take the world-renowned flashlight tour. What are you doing here? And enter the all-new Curse of Sarah Winchester maze. Get out! If you dare, we'll prove to you that our house is scarier than yours. Go to facebook.com/ourhouseisscarierthanyours and post your story. Only from the Winchester Mystery House and the Geek Speak Radio Show. Get ready to speak geek. People who get it, get it. This is the Geek Speak Radio Show.
It is the Geek Speak Radio Show. Welcome back. I'm Henry Romo, not here. Yes, he's scared still from our adventures in the Winchester Mystery House. Maybe I left him there. Don't know. We'll see. So we're continuing to talk about a feeding ground. Talk to Swifty. Talk to Mike. Now I'm going to talk to another one of the creators. That would be Mr. Chris Mangun. He is the creator of Feeding Ground. Chris, welcome to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Having a lot of fun talking to Swifty and the Mike before you. So let's finish off with you. Where did you get the idea for Feeding Ground?
The idea actually came loosely from a friend of Swifty's, but really Swifty just nailed it down, and I believe it was around 2008. He had this idea for creating a story about a family in the desert, and they were dealing with some of the hardships of living in Mexico and were forced to flee, and essentially there was a werewolf out in the desert, and that was kind of the basis of the story. He told me this idea actually at a bar one night, and it was one of those nights where like we've had a couple to drink, and I told him, I said, that's a great idea, and you should really spend some time and flesh that out. And at the time, there really wasn't any notion to make a graphic novel. It was just simply to try and get it as a story, whether that was going to be a movie script or something else. We weren't quite sure. So we just started meeting, I think, for just a couple months and just starting to get the bones of the story. And then John had a great idea of introducing a friend, Mike Lapinski, and he was a professional artist. So when we brought him in, we knew right away that comics was the right vehicle for the story, and we really just started working as a team to flesh it out.
Yeah, Swifty gave us a little bit of his side of the story. We just wanted to hear yours also. Once you guys came up with the idea and everything, was the plan from the beginning to make it a 6-issue series, comic book series, or did you guys want to make it a graphic novel right from the start?
The goal was actually both. We knew from the start that we wanted to end up with a graphic novel, but at the time, the market was suggesting we should do single issue. So, and for our production sanity, we really needed to parse things out as single issue. And about every 2 months, we would finish a single issue, take a quick breath, and then get back to working on the follow-up. So it took us, a little over a year to put everything together, but the goal was to take all those individual issues and then package them as a graphic novel.
As you started getting into the story, where did you draw examples from, or what kind of research went into the story?
It's a great question. Just to kind of talk a little bit about some of the history and what we knew. I mean, at least from my side, I have quite a few friends that come from Mexico, some that are U.S. citizens that ended up working in Mexico for nonprofits. But there was a history that I was aware of, and I think part of that awareness is that our countries are deeply connected, politically, socially, economically, and the borders, I think, of the United States and Mexico are a bellwether for humanity, and that in the Americas and how we treat each other. And I think this goes back to the 60s and 70s. There's a large recession, especially in the 70s, that came about, and drugs surfaced from there, and South and Central America with cocaine and pot, and that really forced, I think, a lot of cultures that were very stable and cities that were very stable to fall into decline. And a lot of my friends were dealing with some of the fallout of NAFTA, which in 1994, I think, sought to solve some of these problems at the same time, personally sought to exploit them. And, to solve them, I think they were trying to solve financial issues by bringing in companies to create jobs, to create order in small Mexico towns, and really to kind of help with these factories and bringing a trickle-down effect with local business. But really, in the end, they exploited, at least in my opinion, a lot of the local work, in that they were paying very low wages. And a lot of that money didn't trickle down. It just floated back up to the United States. So I think a lot of this, looking at just a backstory of all these forces that were coming together to create just a really harsh environment for people to survive. And I think some of this is looking at just what Mexico is, socially, politically, economically, and then it's looking at the individuals who are really dealing with this. And I think in the early 90s, we saw a lot of these people who are immigrating to the United States illegally that are looking for work, and that was just kind of the basis of their migration. But then in the early aughts until present, there are entire families that are trying to escape, not just to find work, but to escape crime and all the problems that are down there. And these are families who traditionally try to cross into America by trekking across a desert landscape, often with a coyote, which is, I don't know if Swifty and Mike talked in detail about some of this, but for those that don't know what a coyote is, it's essentially a guide who knows the land, knows where to find water, knows how not to be caught by the border police. And some individuals cross on roads, others go where no one else would go, like the Sonoran Desert. And that really brings me to one of the books we used, which I'm sure some of the other creators talked about, a book called The Devil's Highway by Luis Urrea. And it's a work of nonfiction that it really covers, in a very micro way, a story about men who are trying to cross, particularly 26 men who try and cross a desert that can kill people from the heat, just simply the heat of the day, or from the cold in the night. And it's a landscape just riddled with rattlesnakes and thieves and border patrol, and worse, no one knows that they're out there. That the whole purpose of kind of sneaking through a desert is that no one's going to see you. No one's going to know that you're out there. And I think essentially for us, all these different factors and forces, it's about the troubles of Mexico, about how people are trying to leave that country, the harsh landscape, all this set up perfect stage for a horror story. So I think a lot of that research went into just creating the reality and the landscape for our story.
Yeah, Luis Urrea actually wrote the introduction to Feeding Ground, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Very nice introduction.
Yeah, and again, if you guys want to see that, you go to their Facebook page, Facebook.com/Feeding Ground. You can actually read issue number 1 for free on there, and you see the intro and Mike's work and everything that went into it. Very well researched. I like the way you answered that. Earlier, Swifty gave me a very cool comparison between the immigrant experience and werewolves, where he says that coming here as an immigrant, he compares it to becoming a werewolf, where you have to transform into something else. Mm-hmm. So that to you, did you always want it to be a werewolf that was going to be featured, or did you think of any other monster?
Yeah, no, I think that's another great question. I never considered another monster. I mean, even if another monster started to float in, such as a zombie, or even just like a large creature like Godzilla or something like, it just never fit. When this story started in 2008, we knew we wanted to follow a family, and that our monster would be a werewolf. I think werewolves are the perfect monster for this story because they embody, as Swifty said, transformation. And they split humanity between being a normal human being and a raging beast that's led entirely by hunger. And, they'll stop at nothing to get what they need, And our story, I think, demands this kind of monster because, loosely speaking, many people on the border are forced to transform from kind of their normal lives into something that they really could never expect that they would become. And a lot of that has to do with the forces around them. I think what makes our werewolves unique, and I don't know if Swifty touched on this, is that, I think we keep a little bit of a human element to them even after they transform. And they drown out, even drowning in the hunger of the moment, they still retain a slight sense of pack mentality and consciousness toward family.
Yeah, and again, we're talking to Chris Mangun, creator of Feeding Ground, bilingual and in Espanol versions, collected edition hardcover, out in bookstores, comic book stores. You can get it on Amazon, get it on the Archaea website. All easy for you on geekspeakradioshow.com in the link section. You can get your copy on there. Or if you want to, like I said, read the first issue for free, Facebook/Feeding Ground. It's all there. Chris, have you guys planned on doing any follow-ups, or you feel that you already told the story you wanted to tell?
We definitely, for those that read the story, I think anyone can see the potential for a follow-up, and we're going to just leave it open like that right now. And I think we're just going to, I know that we feel like there's definitely an opportunity for that, but, I think we want to just leave it open right now and see how things go with this story, and then just kind of what's going on in our own personal lives, because as you know, making a graphic novel is a huge challenge. So.
Yeah, Mike actually touched on that. So again, Chris Mangun, thanks a lot for coming on, and wish you continued success with Feeding Ground, and any other project you have, you're more than welcome to come back and talk about it.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so again, Chris Mangun, creator of Feeding Ground available, like I said, in all comic book stores. It's available everywhere. Just go to geekspeakradioshow.com in the link section. You can get your copy right on there. So we'll be back and talk some more. Well, it'll be a surprise, so stay right there.
Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.
We seek her out, the one who stole our lives. We will have our revenge, and you will die.
This Halloween, the most haunted place in American history comes to life at Winchester Mystery House's all-new Fright Nights. Evening haunts begin September 30th. For more details or to buy tickets, visit winchestermysteryhouse.com or Winchester Mystery House box office.
This is the house that fear built.
So you think your house is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House, do you? Here's your chance to prove it. Go to facebook.com/ourhouseisscarierthanyours and post your scary but true haunted house story. Do you hear weird noises in your house? Do you see shadows when no one's there? Something even more scarier than that? Post it on our wall and we'll pick the one we think is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House. If we pick your story, you'll get tickets to experience the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights events, happening weekends through October 31st. Take the world-renowned flashlight tour. What are you doing here? And enter the all-new Curse of Sarah Winchester maze. Get out! If you dare, we'll prove to you that our house is scarier than yours. Go to facebook.com/ourhouseisscarierthanyours and post your story. Only from the Winchester Mystery House and the Geek Speak Radio Show. This is the show where you hear everything geek culture.
Rules? We don't think so.
This is the Geek Speak Radio Show.
It is the Geek Speak Radio Show. I'm Henry Romo's not here. He is out sick today. Funny how he's sick right after our adventures at the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights. Thanks for that. And if you guys want to see a little sneak peek, go to our YouTube page, Geek Speak Videos. It's all on there. And speaking of, during the breaks, I kind of let the ghost out of the house now, so I might as well let you all know exactly what's going on. Thanks to the Winchester Mystery House, they have provided some tickets for us to share with you. So who wants to go to Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights? Of course, you have to be here in the San Francisco Bay Area, or at least be able to make your way to San Jose. No, I'm not going to sing the song. Neither the Winchester Mystery House nor the Geek Speak Radio Show will provide transportation or accommodations at a hotel for you. You got to take care of that on your own. But we will give you passes to the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights, which includes the Flashlight Tour and the all-new Curse of Sarah Winchester Maze. And again, if you want to get a little peek, a little taste of what it's going to be like, go to YouTube, Geek Speak Videos, go to the playlist that says Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights. It's all right there. It's a little dark, but then so is the maze. So how do you get it? You got to do a little work. I'm not just going to give it out like that. You have to do a little bit of work. I know a lot of you out there have your own stories about a haunted house. Could be the one you're living in, could be one that you moved away from. Could be, your uncle's house that was supposedly haunted. Any real story that you think is a little bit scarier than the Sarah Winchester house, or I should say the Sarah Winchester house legend, which led to the construction of the Winchester Mystery House. If you think yours is just a little bit scarier than that, go to facebook.com/Our House is Scarier Than Yours. Go on our wall, post on there your story. We'll read it. Listeners will read it. They'll comment. But we will pick, by October 28th, we will pick who we think is the scariest. Well, maybe almost as scary as the Winchester Mystery House. And you'll get 4 tickets to check out Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights. You can do it on Halloween night. You can do it that weekend. You can do it Halloween night because Halloween is on a Monday this week. But tickets will be all yours if you go to facebook.com/Our House is Scarier Than Yours and tell us, how is your house scarier than the Winchester Mystery House? I know, like I said, I know you all have some stories. It's got to be a real story, though. Yeah, I see. You see, you're already thinking of something. No, I can't make up some stories. I know you guys got some really good imaginations, but can't make them up. It's got to be a real story of a house, like I said, that you lived in or that you visited. It could be an uncle's house, friend's house, even cousin 3 times removed. But as long as you thought there was something there, scary noise or an unexplained noise, shadows, cold spots, you just felt that something or someone was watching you, let us know. If you deem it scary, 4 tickets to the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights. You can go on Halloween night or sometime before Halloween weekend. To make it all easy for you, you can just go to geekspeakradioshow.com. On our main page, the link is there to the Facebook page for Our House is Scarier Than Yours. All of this just got me in the Halloween mood. So let me take a quick break again. When we come back, let me tell you about something Halloween that's happening right here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Not the Winchester Mystery House, but it is another haunted house.
The Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.
So you think your house is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House, do you? Here's your chance to prove it. Go to facebook.com/Our House is Scarier Than Yours and post your scary but true haunted house story. Do you hear weird noises in your house? Do you see shadows when no one's there? Something even more scarier than that? Post it on our wall and we'll pick the one we think is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House. If we pick your story, you'll get tickets to experience the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights event, happening weekends through October 31st. Take the world-renowned Flashlight Tour. What are you doing here? And enter the all-new Curse of Sarah Winchester Maze. Get out! If you dare, we'll prove to you that our house is scarier than yours. Go to facebook.com/Our House is Scarier Than Yours and post your story. Only from the Winchester Mystery House and the Geek Speak Radio Show.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, for our next attraction.
Back to the Geek Speak Radio Show. Now back to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
And we are back on the Geek Speak Radio Show. Just finished doing something sort of Halloween-y. Had werewolves in there. Romo not here. I'm Henry. Hello, everybody. Romo not here because he, quote-unquote, called in sick. We know why after our adventures at the Winchester Mystery House last week, which they're all up on YouTube. On our the videos are on there. You guys can take a look at that. Right now, let's do some more really Halloween-related stuff. I found something the other day called The Vampire's Wish, a Haunted House. It happens right here in the San Francisco Bay Area, specifically in San Bruno. And I'm not going to try to tell you all about it because let's talk to the people who do put it together. That would be Stacy Rich-Palafox. Stacy, welcome to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you for having me.
No
good,
problem.
thanks.
So tell me a little bit about A Vampire's Wish.
Well, it's a haunted house that we put on at the San Bruno Recreation Center, which is located in San Bruno City Park. Basically, we transform the halls of the locker rooms for the city pool, and we use that space because it's a nice chunk of space, and we create a haunted house. This year's haunted house is called A Vampire's Wish. It's basically about the life of a vampire who's lived thousands of years, and he's very depressed. He's tormented by his immortality. He's seen too many loves lost and died. It's sort of similar to the Anne Rice Interview with a Vampire. So the haunted house itself, it's a story that you basically walk through, and you see a bunch of different scenes with actors. And you see the life of a vampire, all the indignities that he faces just to survive. That's really what it's about. It's a lot of fun, and we sort of, there is blood and gore, but it's more about the scenes and the acting.
Well, that's good. As long as they're not sparkling, then we're okay with those kind of vampires.
No, they're not.
Is this?
Yeah, and it takes place in New Orleans, early 1800s, so got that whole feel.
Like it even more. So is this the first time you put on the haunted house?
No, actually, this is our third year doing it at the San Bruno Rec Center.
Okay, and the address for that, by the way, is 251 City Park Way, San Bruno, California, 94066. You can go to BayAreaHauntedHouse.com, get some more information on that. It's up on GeekSpeakRadioShow.com on the link section. It's all on there for you. So tell me about the people behind the scenes. Who's putting the haunted house together?
Right. Well, it's my sister and I. We're partners. We call ourselves Rich Girl Productions. My sister's Carrie Rich-Lujan, and we've been building haunted houses for a lot of years now. We sort of just started building them in the driveway of my house, then we kind of started doing it over at an elementary school in San Bruno, and then we took it to a bigger area, which is now at San Bruno City Park. As far as the actors inside of our haunted house, we use a bunch of volunteer teenagers from the local high school, Cappuccino High School. So there'll be a bunch of volunteers in there, so that should be a lot of fun. So that's pretty much what's going on there.
Yes. What are the dates and the times for the haunted house?
Okay, it's taking place Thursday, October 27th from 5 to 8:30 p.m. And that's because it's sort of in conjunction with San Bruno City's Goblin Grotto for little kids, so that's why it's so early that night. Then we have it Friday, October 28th from 6 to 9:30, and Saturday, October 29th from 6 to 9:30.
Okay, so perfect warm-up for Halloween weekend. That happens, again, October 27th, 28th, and 29th, and you can get all the information, like I said, on BayAreaHauntedHouse.com. And I'm assuming you have a Facebook for that also?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so you get some more information right on there. Where can they get tickets for this?
Well, they can order tickets directly off the website, or they can call the San Bruno Rec Center, which that number is 650-616-7180, or they can go to the San Bruno City website and also order tickets from there. And actually, tickets at the door will be $5, but if they pre-order tickets, it's $4, and that's up to October 27th.
That's in everybody's budget today, especially with the economic situation we're in right now.
Exactly.
So again, it's called The Vampire's Wish, a haunted house happening in San Bruno. It's 251 City Park Way in San Bruno. Again, the website, BayAreaHauntedHouse.com. Stacy, let me get away a little bit from the Vampire's Wish. What made you want to start, and your sister start doing these haunted houses?
It's just something that's always fascinated the both of us, and it really just started when our kids were young, and we wanted to have a Halloween party, and we thought, it would be really cool to put up a canopy tent in our driveway and cover it with a bunch of plastic and make a haunted house. So that's sort of how it started. That's probably about 8 years ago, I think. And it just sort of grew from there. We both always loved scary movies, not over-the-top scary, but sort of, I don't know, I guess I always say we do sort of a Disneyland ride with an evil twist. It's just a lot about stories and scenes. But that's where it started, and it's just grown bigger and bigger, and we're hoping for it to grow even bigger in the future and maybe make more of a bigger business haunted house type deal.
Yeah, I think you just described my favorite ride at Disneyland is the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, exactly. I love Disneyland.
Yeah, last year on the show we had for the whole month of October last year we had the Spirit of Halloween interview series. It was basically we started off with Chloe Moretz, who played Hit Girl in Kick-Ass. And I asked all the actors, everybody that came on, what does Halloween mean to them? Because to me, and this is my opinion, to me, I see Halloween as becoming too commercialized, kind of like with Christmas. It's all about who gets the present, who gets the bigger present, and the meaning behind Christmas kind of goes away. With Halloween, I'm starting to see the same thing. It's more about, what's the latest Saw movie, what's the latest horror movie on in the movie theaters. And it's not really about that to me. It's about the traditions, about Halloween, the trick or treating, all that stuff. To you, Stacy, what does Halloween mean to you?
Well, I guess it's one of my favorite holidays. Obviously, it's just sort of that feeling that you start to get when Halloween, when October comes. The feeling of a new season, fall is here. The holidays are approaching, and Halloween's the first one. And I've always loved it. It's about dressing up and pretending to be someone else you're not, or, seeing scary movies, or it's just a lot of fun. I think it's about fun and the whole holiday season sort of approaching and the excitement.
Yeah, and I like that time of year too. It's when nights get darker and colder and just a little bit longer, and you don't really know what that shadow is behind you.
Yeah, just even the smell of pumpkins burning, and it's exciting. It reminds me of being a kid.
Exactly. So again, Stacy Rich-Palafox, Vampire's Wish, a haunted house, happening in San Bruno, California, 251 City Park Way. All the information, tickets especially, available at BayAreaHauntedHouse.com. And it's happening October 27th, 28th, 29th. Get all the information on GeekSpeakRadioshow.com in the links section. So again, Stacy, thanks a lot for coming on and talking to us about A Vampire's Wish, and have a happy Halloween.
You too. Thanks so much. Take care.
Okay, thanks a lot. So there you go, Stacy, with A Vampire's Wish, a haunted house, just one of the many things happening here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, let me ask you guys for some help with this show. We are heard around the world, really, but all over the country. And I've been focusing here locally in San Francisco Bay Area. We did the Winchester Mystery House last week. This is in San Bruno. We're going to do some things. Actually, last week we did Ghost Hunter's Guide to the San Francisco Bay Area, the book with Dr. Jeff Dwyer. But you guys that are in the Midwest and the East Coast, let me know, what kind of stuff do you guys have for Halloween, that is? Is there a haunted attraction, a haunted house that's really, really cool and you guys wanted to talk about it? Send me an email, henry@geekspeakradioshow.com, and we will talk about that. So let me take a quick break. When we come back, well, just stay right there and you'll find out exactly what's coming up.
Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.
We seek her out, the one who stole our lives. We will have our revenge, and you will die.
This Halloween, the most haunted place in American history comes to life at Winchester Mystery House's all-new Fright Nights. Evening haunts begin September 30th. For more details or to buy tickets, visit WinchesterMysteryHouse.com or Winchester Mystery House box office.
This is the house that fear built.
So you think your house is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House, do you? Here's your chance to prove it. Go to Facebook.com/OurHouseIsScarier-Than-Yours and post your scary but true haunted house story. Do you hear weird noises in your house? Do you see shadows when no one's there? Something even more scarier than that? Post it on our wall and we'll pick the one we think is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House. If we pick your story, you'll get tickets to experience the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights events, happening weekends through October 31st. Take the world-renowned flashlight tour. What are you doing here? And enter the all-new Curse of Sarah Winchester maze. Get out! If you dare, we'll prove to you that our house is scarier than yours. Go to facebook.com/ourhouseisscarierthanyours and post your story. Only from the Winchester Mystery House and the Geek Speak Radio Show. Back to the Geek Speak Radio Show. Now back to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
And we're back on the Geek Speak Radio Show. This is the kind of show that I like, where we do a little bit of everything. We started with some comic books with a little twist to it. Then we went to Halloween stuff, and then we're going to do movies a little bit later, and it's just going all over the place. Now, let's go to video games, specifically one in particular. It's out now. You guys can download it. It's available on iTunes. It's called High Flyer Death Defyer. I saw this back at WonderCon a few months ago. It feels like it was a year ago, but it was a few months ago. On our YouTube page, you guys saw an interview on there with Jason Alejandre, who is the president, creative director, and one of the co-founders of Game Mechanic Studios, who is responsible for High Flyer Death Defyer. And Jason is back with us. Jason, welcome back to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
Great to be back. Good to talk with you again, Henry.
Yeah, so back then at WonderCon, you showed me a demo, but you couldn't really talk too much about it because it wasn't out yet. Now it is out, so now that we can talk about it, tell everybody about High Flyer Death Defyer.
So High Flyer Death Defyer is a free-flying game for iOS and specifically developed for the iPad too. We started out with, basically just like anybody else, a dream like, our main character, Arion, about flying. And so as he grows up, he's trying to perfect, building a jetpack and flying in the skies. He ends up doing that, and on his way to basically flying and flying through these worlds, he ends up, finding out that there's an alien race that's kind of been enslaved. And that kind of, to an extent, at first it was just about, hey, I'm going to fly around and find treasure, and now it's more about, hey, there's a higher calling, there's in need race that needs help and saving.
Yeah, when you showed it to me at WonderCon, I mentioned to you on the YouTube interview we did that it reminded me, from what I saw, of a movie and a video game. The video game was Tomb Raider, and the movie was Attack of the Clones, where Anakin's flying down Coruscant and when he jumps off the ship and he's trying to avoid all those things. When you were designing the game, what games or movies or anything inspired the design?
I would say I think we had some inspiration from early Nintendo games. We definitely were big fans of Pilot Wings when that came out. And if you kind of look at that game, the way you skydive in that game, and also there's another mini game where you have a jetpack. At the end of the day, I think we took both those kind of basic ideas and put them into one, and then kind of blasted it into the future.
Yeah, again, we're talking to Jason Alejandre, who's the president, creative director, co-founder of Game Mechanic Studios. They just released High Flyer Death Defyer. It looks like a very fun game. Got to tell all of you, Jason and I were talking right before we started the interview. I've mentioned all during the hour and last hour. Romo's not here, my co-host. It's a little funny how he all of a sudden started getting sick because we thanks to Game Mechanic, they sent us they sent us a code to demo the game, and we downloaded it. Except Romo has our iPad, and I haven't touched it yet. He has. It's funny how he got sick just when I sent him that code. So the sickness is probably he's addicted now to playing High Flyer Death Defyer. Going with that, picking from what I've seen, I haven't seen it yet, like I said, but from what I see, it seems very easy for the expert gamer who's played just about every single game out there to someone who has never picked up a game. They can probably pick it up and get right into the game. Is that what you were thinking when you were designing the game?
I think so. I mean, we had a couple of challenges when we were designing the game because most games you play now, I think you've played it before. So you can jump in and you can play a first-person shooter and you can just immediately understand how to control the game. I think with our game, because there aren't a lot of games like it, and we did try and do something creative, different, and unique, there's definitely that kind of first little hurdle of like understanding that you're falling really fast and you have to get out of the way of objects that potentially can kill you, and at the same time you have to land. So I think it's one of those things where it takes a little bit of custom to, but once you get into it, I think, you know, we've seen it ourselves. People just get really quick and they can speed run through these levels in less than a minute. Or we've seen people that just love kind of the exploration aspect, and they end up searching for every hidden alien on every island and revealing all of those things.
Yeah, it looks pretty easy to get into. I mean, the graphics look phenomenal. I'm sure they look even better now on the completed game. But the demo you showed me was kind of a comic book feel to it, and it even looked like a little bit like Saturday morning cartoons, and that right there, you got two big audiences going to be attracted to that just because of those two things.
We ended up building the comic book story out more than we anticipated. We ended up the final comic book page total came to 110 pages to tell the story in this first part of the game.
Right, let's get a little bit more into Jason now. I think I read it was on the Game Mechanics website, which is linked up on GeekSpeakRadioshow.com. By the way, you go to our link section, it's right on there. I think I read in your bio or an interview somewhere that you had the beginning ideas of High Flyer when you were, I think it was 14 years old. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think at that age, it was the two ideas I had back then was really just super high level. It was, you know what, I really want to have a world that's booby-trapped, and then I really would love to have a jetpack. And I think any kid growing up, I think you always dream of having a jetpack, and those were kind of the two things at that point in time that I was thinking in regards to this game.
Yeah, did any of that come from the Star Wars character from Boba Fett and his jetpack?
Oh, definitely. You know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so that definitely is an inspiration then and still today.
So I was right then at WonderCon when I said it kind of reminded me of that scene in Attack of the Clones. So I guess that's where it came from.
I thought that was a great reference. You know, we've heard a lot of people, you know, kind of say, hey, it kind of looks like that, or it kind of looks like that. And I think that was like almost definitely spot on for you know what our game is kind of like.
Yeah, and Jason's not 14 years old anymore. He's 15 now. No, he's grown up now, obviously. So how did the game evolve from what you came up with at 14 to now, the completed product?
Well, I would say the biggest difference would be the world. The one thing that when I was younger, I was really thinking just, you know, jetpacks and booby traps. Right. But now, you know, we were thinking we really wanted to make this world look like something you've never seen before. And at the same time, we've worked on a lot of realistic games in the past. So we were hoping that not only does it look creative, but it still kind of has a grounded feeling, and it feels like a place you might be able to visit someday. So I would say that was the biggest kind of thing for us now, was just establishing what Ariane looks like, what the world looks like, and how creative and colorful everything is.
Yeah, and Jason's not a new name to the video game world. You have designed some other pretty cool games also. So how do you approach not just High Flyer, but any video game you design? How do you approach the design? Do you approach it from story first, or how do you approach game design?
So I mean, that's a great question, and I think it's for me, it's a project to project basis. Like, if I know for a fact that, you know, we're going in, you know, in this game in particular is going to be all about story, then we definitely focus in on the story first, and then we kind of see how the game stacks up after the story's been created. If we're going strictly for, hey, we want to create a great core mechanic, then we start from the core mechanic and we build out from there. And I would say those are both my approaches. And then R&D and inspiration. You know, I do a lot of R&D before I start any design, and I also look at inspirational works from movies, to painters, to artists, to you name it, music, even sports. I look for inspiration in all those places where other people entertain the masses, and that's kind of our approach, my approach specifically.
Now, you mentioned you were a huge Star Wars fan, but what video games did you like playing when you were growing up?
I would say, I mean, two of my early favorite games were, I'm a huge Miyamoto fan, so Zelda, and then also Super Mario, of course, and then a game that I don't know if a lot of people will remember, but a game called ActRaiser that I felt was like really amazing back then as well.
So again, we're talking to Jason Alejandre, president, creative director, and co-founder of Game Mechanic Studios. They just released High Flyer Death Defyer. It's available for your iPad, iPhone, and Jason, is it going to be available for the new iPhone 4S when that comes out?
Definitely. The version we have right now that runs on the iPad 2 is using that A5 chip in all its glory, and we can't wait to get it on the iPhone 4S and basically have the same exact version on the phone now.
Yeah, going back a little bit to a question that I asked you a few minutes ago, did you take the new technology and the new iPad, the new iPhones that are coming out, and put that into the game design? Take that into consideration when you were designing High Flyer? Yeah,
I mean, I would say like if that new technology wasn't there, we might have hesitated a little bit to make this game. I mean, when the minute we had it up and running on the iPad 2 and we saw how amazing that chip was able to produce the graphics of the game, and then how close it was to what we've seen on older console systems. I mean, we were all in, and we were all excited to create something new, different, and unique. So it was definitely the overwhelming inspiration to start creating mobile games.
Again, the game is called High Flyer Death Defyer. I've seen reviews, I've podcasts, on blogs, on video game websites. Reviews so far are all excellent. Looks like you got a hit on your hands. Everybody loves it. It's, like I said, it's very easy to pick up. Even for somebody who's never played a video game before, they can just pick it up. And like you showed me, and I can't wait to play it when Romo brings back our iPad. It's pretty cool where you tilt the iPad and that's how you control the character. I like that. So like I said, you guys definitely got a hit on your hands.
Oh, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
And having said that, have you thought about doing a sequel or any future projects, maybe not High Flyer, connected to High Flyer?
Well, I think we definitely want to continue to update High Flyer and get it better. So we're definitely looking for all the players to give us feedback and tell us, hey, what they like, what they don't like, and we're gonna update it and continue to make it better. And we want to expand the story. So we've already built into the game itself where once you're done with this first city called Machine City, in the future we'll be releasing the next part of the story. Hopefully more characters, and then we have thought about a new project that's completely different, and we'll be looking at seeing what it takes to get that going as well.
Okay, and again, you can catch all that on the Game Mechanics website, which is up on GeekSpeakRadioShow.com in our link section. It's on there. So again, Jason Alejandre, president, creative director, co-founder of Game Mechanics Studios. The new game, High Flyer Death Defyer, available right now for your iPad, for your iPhone. Just go to the iTunes App Store. It's right there. So Jason, thanks again. Wish you much luck. Don't really need it because, like I said, it looks like you got a big hit on your hands.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Okay, Jason, and you're welcome back anytime to talk about High Flyer Death Defyer or any other project you want to.
Very cool. Thank you.
The Geek Speak Radio Show. We'll be right back.
We seek her out, the one who stole our lives. We will have our revenge, and you will die.
This Halloween, the most haunted place in American history comes to light at Winchester Mystery House's all-new Fright Nights. Evening haunts begin September 30th. For more details or to buy tickets, visit WinchesterMysteryHouse.com or Winchester Mystery House box office.
This is the house that fear built.
So you think your house is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House, do you? Here's your chance to prove it. Go to Facebook.com/OurHouseIsScarier-Than-Yours and post your scary but true haunted house story. Do you hear weird noises in your house? Do you see shadows when no one's there? Something even more scarier than that? Post it on our wall and we'll pick the one we think is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House. If we pick your story, you'll get tickets to experience the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights events, happening weekends through October 31st. Take the world-renowned flashlight tour. What are you doing here? And enter the all-new Curse of Sarah Winchester Maze. Get out! If you dare, we'll prove to you that our house is scarier than yours. Go to facebook.com/ourhouseisscarierthanyours and post your story. Only from the Winchester Mystery House and the Geek Speak Radio Show.
You're listening to the Geek Speak Radio Show.
It is the Geek Speak Radio Show. Hey everybody, welcome back. So before we finish the week, let us do the features. First, we start with the Geek Speak Radio Show Book Club. And since Romo's not here, today the book club belongs to me. So my selection for this week is The Last Apprentice, The Curse of the Bane by Joseph Delaney. Now this was a suggestion from last week by email from Allison Hardy from Los Angeles. She did mention in the email, and I mentioned it last week when I mentioned it also on the air, she did say that this is a series. It's not one book. It's a series of books. Now, when I went to the library, they didn't have the first one in the series. They had the second one. This is The Curse of the Bane, is the second book in the series. But from what I understand, the series was actually designed for you to jump in on any book. There is a storyline that falls in there, but if you jump in not in order, you won't be lost. So again, this is called The Last Apprentice, The Curse of the Bane by Joseph Delaney. Now, when I first saw the email from Allison last week, all that stood out to me was Last Apprentice. It's about an apprentice who has to take over for his master. The first thing I thought of was the Sith from Star Wars. And it's not a Star Wars book at all. It has nothing to do with Jedis or anything like that. They don't even use lightsabers. What it's about, without giving too much away, is about a man named John Gregory. He's known as the Spook, which is basically like a Ghostbuster, except he doesn't use proton packs, and it's only one. A spook hunts creatures of the dark, like ghosts, ghasts, witches, boggarts, the Bane, which is one of the biggest villain in this one, The Curse of the Bane. That's why it's called The Curse of the Bane. Hello. But that's what he does. They don't use magic. They have a certain knowledge. I don't want to give too much away, but they have a certain knowledge of how to deal with creatures of the dark. Now, John Gregory is approaching the end of his time as a spook. In other words, he's old. He's too old for this stuff. And so he's been looking for an apprentice. Now, he's gone through 9 others already, and they've all met an untimely, grisly death. He's found, finally, who he thinks will be his replacement. His name is Tom Ward. He becomes the apprentice, the last apprentice, which is why it's called The Last Apprentice. Now, both of them, John Gregory and Tom Ward, they are both 7th sons of a 7th son, which supposedly in the book and the story means that they, above everybody else, are even more sensitive to creatures of the dark and witches, and they can sense them. It is a kid's book, but it is scary. You don't want to read. I would suggest you read this to people 13 and up. 13 and under, maybe 10, 11, 12, they can handle it. But younger than that, it's definitely not for them. They will have nightmares when you start reading this book to them. It's not something you want to read to them before they go to sleep. And like I said, it is an 8 series, actually 11, because there's 8 books that follow the adventures of Tom Ward. Then there's also 3 other ones. One is sort of a prequel that tells the spook story, how he became from apprentice to becoming the spook. And then also Tom Ward's survival guide, and also a bestiary that written by the spook. So in all, there's 11 books. And I think there's another one coming. This one's definitely got me hooked. Like I said, I started with the second book, Curse of the Bane. But I'm going to go find the first one, and I'm going to read every single one. It's got me hooked. So it's The Last Apprentice by Joseph Delaney. It's up on GeekSpeakRadioShow.com in the book club section. So thanks again, Allison Hardy, I think was her name. Yeah, Allison Hardy from Los Angeles. She sent the email, and you can do the same thing. Suggest any book you like. send it to books@geekspeakradioshow.com. I will get it there. I'll go get the book or buy it, read it, and if I like it, we'll feature it here on the Geek Speak Radio Show Book Club. Okay, so that's the book club. Let's go on to the next feature, which is
Comics Commentary with David Lee on the Geek Speak Radio Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the second edition of Comics Commentary with David Lee. That's me. Last week, you heard the first inaugural episode where I talked about comics and video games. A couple things near and dear to my heart. This week, though, I'm going to actually take it back to just comic books. The comic book in question is called The New 52. If you heard my episode, the very first one, I had a brief podcast with Henry and Romo here that we discussed The New 52, Miles Morales, and I didn't really get to talk much about it because we were talking more about Miles Morales. So this time we're going to jump in and talk about The New 52. My first initial reaction to The New 52 was, what the hell are they thinking? And then I got to hearing more about it, and I was thinking, okay, let's give it a shot. It seems to be interesting. But then as more news and information filtered out, and Dan DiDio said, oh yeah, it's a reboot, cue the facepalm again. What the hell you thinking, DC? And then the new issue came out, and I actually got to read it. It was the first Justice League issue, and I was going, this is utter crap. Why? For an intro to Justice League, to quote one of my friends, the intro to Justice League, the comic book series is great. But introduction to the new DC universe, it sucked. I wasn't really impressed with it, but I figured, okay, well, let's give it a little bit more shot. So I waited, and then Wednesday Comic Book Day came around. I went to buy the other the other comic books, and I was actually kind of surprisingly impressed with this. Now, before I get to the good stuff, because we all want to hear the good stuff, let's go ahead and get the bad stuff out the way. I'm not entirely impressed with some of the gore and the attitudes from some of the DC heroes. Like take for instance, Detective Comics. Spoiler alert right here. If you haven't read Detective Comics, turn your volume down and come back later. You ready? You still here? Good. At the end of Detective Comics #1, we find out that a character named the Dollmaker has cut the Joker's face off, stuck it to a wall, and then all we hear off scene is the Joker and the Dollmaker, I apologize, talking about how they're going to take the next step. It's been a long time since I've read a comic book that disturbed me. Take, for instance, Punisher. You've got Volume 5, and then moving onward with the Marvel Max series. The Marvel Max comic series is basically the adult comics. You've got Castle blowing people's brains out, for God's sake. It's kind of like, holy crap, did he really just... Oh. So I'm very, very familiar with the gore and the nastiness and the swear words in the comics. But then when I turned to the last page of Detective Comics, my jaw hit the floor, my eyes went as wide as an anime character's face with a sweat drop running down it. And I just went, what the hell did I just read? And I had to go back a few pages, read it again, and come back and look at the picture again. And I was still disturbed. Never has a comic like that disturbed me for something that mainstream. I'm not sure how I feel about it. The fact that Joker let himself do that was actually kind of crazy, but what was more shocking to me was that they did it with a mainstream character like, well, the Joker. What the hell? It's a definite, decidedly darker turn to what should be a mainstream character, like especially in the Batman universe. That leads me into the next point, Batgirl. Yep, start writing your hate mail to DC, ladies and gentlemen. This one's a hottie. So as you all know, Barbara Gordon was crippled in a wheelchair from The Killing Joke, where Joker shot her in the stomach. Cue the new DC 52 reboot, and Barbara Gordon is back in the tights as Batgirl, and she's swinging around. You could almost hear the collective internet gripping their panties and going, no! Vader style in this one, folks. Whew. And I was kind of one of them, because I've got a friend who may have multiple sclerosis, so it was kind of near and dear to me due to her. But then I got to reading the comic book, and I'm going, this is really good. They didn't reboot it. Barbara Gordon had still gone through the Killing Joke, and that actually factored into the comic. So I got to give kudos to Gail Simone about that one. Hats off, ma'am. You definitely did good on that one. Another contrast I'd like to talk about real quick is the contrast between Action Comics and Superman. This is one that really chaps my ass, folks. Superman's always been a comic book character near and dear to me because I grew up with Superman. But some of my most early comic book memories are actually centered around Superman. So when they rebooted him, I kind of went, no, please no, not Superman. Don't reboot my icon. And so they did anyways. And they have two different versions of Superman in the comics right now. Action Comics #1 kind of takes us back to the old school Superman, after a fashion, really. If any of you out there on the interwebs, as it were, are familiar with the website superdickery.com, you'll like the Action Comics Superman. He's a bit of a dick. He's kind of funny, though, in how he does things. He's more of a down-to-earth Bruce Springsteen, born in the USA style character. He's not out there fighting aliens. He's fighting corruption. He's fighting the common man. He's fighting for John Q. Public. As such, he's wearing jeans. He's wearing a t-shirt with the S-shield. His cape sucks, but, beggars can't be choosers. After reading a couple of issues with that one, I was, suitably impressed. I'm definitely going to keep picking it up on Wednesdays. Brings me to Superman #1. My first problem, why is Superman wearing armor? I don't understand it. The man is Kryptonian. Clearly, he can shrug off high-caliber bullet fire. Why does he need armor? I don't get it. The comic itself was pretty good. It was told from a different perspective that I really wasn't expecting. It was told almost from the citizens of Metropolis point of view, with Superman being a secondary face. You see Superman going about his thing. You find out that the old Daily Planet building is trash and they're doing a new one. Okay, fine. You find out that Superman's got a new villain to fight. And you don't really know much about him, but if you go and you read Stormwatch #1, you find out, that's what he is. It was pretty decent. I'm going to give it another issue to see if I really like to stick with it or not. I have to say I give it about a 5 out of 10. But his Kryptonian cousin? Why, DC? Why? Supergirl has always been almost the bane of my existence as a comics reader, but at the same time, I can't stop reading her comic. The current iteration of Kara Zor-El came about in Superman Batman numbers, I want to say 8 through 13, where they introduced the new Supergirl, the new cousin of Superman. And in her own title, she floundered. Several different origin stories that none of them made sense, including something about crystals coming out of her body. It left everybody scratching their heads and me scratching my ass going, do I want to bother reading this? Kept doing it though. I suppose that's my penance. Jump forward to the new 52 Supergirl. The issue sucked. Bottom line. More spoilers, kids. The issue basically has Supergirl showing up. She's just getting used to her powers, and she's in Russia. And I believe she fights the Rocket Reds. The whole story could have been told as a secondary backup story, say, behind Superman. All of the characterization, all of the dialogue, everything could have been done in, say, 10 pages. And they chose to do 27 pages of this. Of what? A filler? No, don't waste my time, DC. Put that story as a secondary one. Don't make me waste $2.99. I really don't want to. That's not a title I'm going to be picking up. Another title I'm going to definitely be skipping, Batman and Robin. And here's why. The Batman aspect, Batman was good. I liked Bruce's comments. I liked how they handled him. Wasn't too keen on how they actually had him move past the tragedy of his parents. I can deal with that. What I can't deal with is that little SOB Damian Wayne. Yep, that's right. Little 12-year-old snot-nosed know-it-all, Damian Wayne. I hate that character. Hate. If I had the chance and he was real, tried to grab him by the head, punt him into the next county. Of course, I get my leg chopped off, but still. Please, DC, get rid of Damien, or at least evolve the character into something remotely resembling decent. You guys did good with him in Teen Titans before they relaunched it. Damien was getting a good storyline going on. He was actually getting a character. He was developing a spine that wasn't like, oh, well, I'm 12 years old, I know it all. No. He was coming better. Now the new reboot, garbage. Pass, skip it. Overall, the whole 52 thing, I guess you could say it's a sum of its parts. Yeah, sure, the continuity's all screwed to hell. You can't tell what's been rebooted, what's not. Characters like Superman, I believe Batman. Well, actually, no, Batman has not been rebooted, as I said before. I forgot about that. My bad. Superman's been rebooted, but characters like Green Lantern, Batman, they're untouched. Well, where do they come in? If you can overlook that, the stories themselves are the best parts of it. You have a good story, the continuity will flow, you'll get the answers. So the only thing I really have to say, DC, kudos to you. You've made a grudging reader out of me, and I'll keep buying the titles, save for, Supergirl, Batman and Robin, and definitely Resurrection Man. My hat's off to Dan Abnett for Resurrection Man. Great title. I won't go into that right now because I actually want you guys to go out and read it for yourselves. That one is probably my standout favorite title. Until next time, folks, this is David Lee for Comics Commentary. See y'all on the funny pages.
The Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.
We seek her out, the one who stole our lives. We will have our revenge, and you will die.
This Halloween, the most haunted place in American history comes to light at Winchester Mystery House's all-new Fright Nights. Evening haunts begin September 30th. For more details or to buy tickets, visit winchestermysteryhouse.com or Winchester Mystery House box office.
This is the house that fear built.
So you think your house is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House, do you? Here's your chance to prove it. Go to facebook.com/ourhouseisscarierthanyours and post your scary but true haunted house story. Do you hear weird noises in your house? Do you see shadows when no one's there? Something even more scarier than that? Post it on our wall and we'll pick the one we think is scarier than the Winchester Mystery House. If we pick your story, you'll get tickets to experience the Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights events, happening weekends through October 31st. Take the world-renowned flashlight tour. What are you doing here? And enter the all-new Curse of Sarah Winchester maze. Get out! If you dare, we'll prove to you that our house is scarier than yours. Go to facebook.com/ourhouseisscarierthanyours and post your story. Only from the Winchester Mystery House and the Geek Speak Radio Show. Get ready to speak geek.
People who get it, get it.
This is the Geek Speak Radio Show.
This is the Geek Speak Radio Show. What are you doing, young ma'am?
I am playing High Flyer Death Defyer.
What are you doing here? I thought you're sick.
Yeah, sick of crashing in and losing these levels. I'm like trying to get to the next one.
So because you're playing High Flyer Death Defyer, I had to sit here and do an entire show, talk to all these people, because you're busy playing.
Hey, it's part of the show, man. This is all part of Geek Speak Radio Show. I'm doing research. Thank you. I got at least to see if it's a good game. It is.
Well, anyway, hi. This is Henry. That's Romo, of course. We're done.
Hey, guys.
I'm done. But before I do, I'm glad you did come in for this, because I introduced something that we're doing an hour ago. I'm going to do it again now that you're here, because I want your input on this, because you were there last week.
Mm-hmm.
Winchester Mystery House, they have Fright Nights going on.
Ooh, that was a lot of fun.
For you?
It was great. I love the maze.
And this is somebody who hates being scared?
It's entertaining.
So if he likes
all fun.
We know you're going to like it. So like I said, we're going to do a contest where I will give 4 VIP passes for your scariest, real, true haunted house story.
Wow, 4 tickets. That's good.
All you got to do is go to facebook.com/Our House is Scarier Than Yours. Everybody's got a story about a haunted house, whether it's yours, whether it's a friend or somebody that you know, where you go in there, there's cold spots, there's shadows, there's people touching you, you hear whispers, but you don't know who to share it with. Share it with us, because if you do, post it on that wall. If you do, on October 28th, we will pick who we think is the scariest one. That gets you 4 VIP tickets to Winchester Mystery House's Fright Nights. You will experience the flashlight tours, the Curse of Sarah Winchester Maze. That's the brand new one. That's the one Romo really liked.
Yeah.
I've been there before, but I've never done the tour, especially not the flashlight tour.
Yeah, it was my first time too.
You mentioned last year on the air, you tried to get into a flashlight tour one time, but
sold out.
You went on Halloween.
And it was sold out.
Yeah, but what did you think this time?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I felt like a detective trying to find ghosts, and the house is really nice. So we're giving away 4 tickets, dude. I can't believe that. That's awesome.
I didn't tell you guys anything.
Uh-huh.
The rest of the Geek Speak crew that went with us that day, as we were going through the house, I did feel a few cold spots in some places. I see some shadows, and it wasn't fellow tourists either.
Huh.
Matter of fact, I didn't say anything. I should have, but there was one right behind you.
You sure it didn't pass wind? Or
No.
That would have been a warm spot.
There was no wind that night. No, but that's what you got to do. Everybody that has a haunted house story, just share it with us on facebook.com/Our House is Scarier Than Yours.
Now, what happens if you don't have a scary story? I mean, my place, I know it's not haunted. Well, I hope at least it's not haunted. But what happens if you don't have a scary story? Can you still win some tickets? Well, what are you looking at me for?
You had to bring that up?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay, fine. Just because Romo says so. There are some of you that may not have a story to share. That's okay. You do have a Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Most people do, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, go to twitter.com, set up an account, and do these things. If you have a Twitter already, do this also. Start following, if you're not already, at Geek Speak Radio 1, the number 1. And also start following at Winchester House. When you do that, where's that message? When you do that, tweet this. Romo, you can't spell. But tweet this. Romo's, you were thinking about this, weren't you?
Yeah.
About people that don't have scary stories. So tweet this. Hey, you hear that?
Yeah, it's the Blue Angels.
Oh, thought I was going to scare you. Yeah, it is Fleet Week here in San Francisco. But tweet this. Happy Halloween. I want to go to at WMH Fright Nights. Or please give me 2 ticks. Hashtag Geek Speak Radio Show. That's it. That's all you got to do.
That's easy.
Yeah, no scary stories, no nothing. That's for anybody. But this is the trick. When you start doing that, then we're gonna run the scary house thing for the next 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
During those 3 weeks, only new to it, I just made up a rule right now. Anybody that's following us right now, sorry, we're not gonna pick you because you were already following us before. But any new followers, any new Twitter followers, we're gonna pick one of you who tweets that message. We'll call you and we'll give you 2 tickets, 2 VIP tickets to Fright Nights. You can go that weekend. You can hold on to it and go on Halloween weekend.
That's
whenever you want.
That's not fair for our fellow followers on our Twitter account. I mean,
well, why should we give them something? They've been here all along. They already have something.
Well, they're loyal. We at least got to pay them back for listening.
Fine. See, when we go there, you guys better thank Romo. Give him some food. Give him something. You know how he is with food too.
I eat it.
So, okay, anybody on Twitter, if you tweet that, we will pick randomly. How about that?
That's perfect. That's better.
We'll pick randomly somebody who tweets that, and we'll contact you and give you 2, not 4, 2 tickets. The 4, you do got to do a little work on that one.
Yeah,
it's a big prize.
Yeah.
And that really is scare us. If you can scare us more than the maze scared Romo, more than the flashlight tour creeped out Romo, then maybe you get 4 tickets, VIP tickets to Winchester Mystery House Fright Nights, for us to prove to you our house is scarier than yours.
Ooh.
So all of that, just go to geekspeakradioshow.com, all easy for you on the main page. It's all on there. And the other thing, thank you.
Why?
Not you. Thank you. Swifty Lang, Mike Lapinski, Chris Mangun, Feeding Ground. You'll like this. Also, Stacy Rich-Palafox, Vampire's Wish Haunted House in San Bruno, here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Jason Alejandre, you can thank him for this one, even though you weren't on.
Death Defyer.
Yeah, it just came out this week. It's out on the where'd you get it? The App Store.
The App Store, yeah.
You can get it on there from Game Mechanic Studios, and also thanks to David Lee for their usual features. But thanks to those guys there, especially you, High Flyer Death Defyer. No thanks for not being here, leaving me all alone.
Sorry about that.
So because of that, next week, I'm going to leave you all alone.
Oh, so I could go back to play my game?
At the Winchester Mystery House.
Oh, well, I'll
Fright
take
nights.
that with me, too.
In the middle of the maze. So be back for some more fun next week.
That's all for this week. The Geek Speak Radio Show will be back next week with a brand new episode. In the meantime, follow them on Twitter at Geek Speak Radio 1. That's Geek Speak Radio, the number 1. Become a fan on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. If you like this episode, wait till next week and tell all your friends too. This is the Geek Speak Radio Show.